I'm 35, male, married to my high school sweetheart, Caroline, 32. She was my junior, and she was always interested in me. After a while, I fell for her too. We dated all the way through college. Everybody looked at our relationship as some sort of miracle. All of our friends said that they had never seen long-distance relationships work. But we did it. Not that it was a piece of cake, but because both of us really wanted our relationship to work. We were so much in love with each other that we were ready to do anything to make it work. After I established my career and she was almost done with her college, I proposed to her. It was pointless to wait any longer, as both of us knew we would not be able to live without each other. We were eager to spend the rest of our lives together. Things changed a lot, though. Things were going well between us like a normal married couple. There was a honeymoon phase where we could not keep our hands off of each other. Both of us made each other the center of our universe. After a few years of marriage, the honeymoon phase faded, of course. However, both of us were still very happy. We lived our days together in love. We made sure to arrange small surprises for each other that kept the romance in our relationship alive. It was not something that was forced. It was effortless and natural. To get into that story, let me tell you about the background of it. I completed my studies in business education. After that, I was ready to handle my dad's business, as I was the only son. He did not impose his business on me. I have always had an immense interest in business. I had visited my dad's office very excitedly when I was a child. I loved to watch him deal with people. He worked really hard, and I observed him very deeply. I knew since my childhood that this was what I was meant to do. When I grew up, so when I completed college, I was ready to pursue business very passionately. I was very determined, and I had to work really hard. My dad was always by my side to correct my mistakes and help me out. I did make mistakes in the beginning, as they are crucial for success, but eventually, I began to run the business really well, and I was getting recognized and praised a lot. After our marriage, Caroline stopped working. She worked at a firm, but she quit her job a few months into the marriage. I did not want that for her, as I am the kind of person who was very supportive of careers. I wanted my wife to do whatever she liked and excel at it. I was very supportive of it and was always there to encourage her. Caroline, however, did not want that. She gave me the reason that she just wanted to stay at home and be a housewife. I asked her the reason for it that made her make this decision. She said that she just wanted a break from work and enjoyed being at home, cooking food and doing the things that she loved. I highlighted the fact that such long breaks set your career back and you find it hard when you return. But it was what Caroline really wanted, therefore, I had to respect my wife's decision and support her in her choice. I earned a handsome amount of money, so it was not like she was contributing to the house. Whatever she earned, it was hers, as it should have been. I always believed that a man has to provide for his family, and I was happy to do so. However, when she made the decision to quit her job, she lied to me. She said that she was just taking a break for a while, but I heard her talking to her mom on a call. She didn't know I had woken up. She told her mom that she had quit her job forever and that she didn't want to work when she had the option of sitting at home and enjoying what her husband earned for her. It really hurt me. I was hurt not because she wanted to not work, but because she had lied to me about the reason for this whole thing. I wondered why she was uncomfortable sharing the truth with me. I would never have judged her or asked her to not quit her job. I loved her and supported and respected all her choices, yet she thought she had to hide it from me. That day, a part of me really broke a little as I realized that my wife did not trust me completely or was not comfortable enough with me even after all these years. I did not confront her at all, as I did not want her to feel like I was eavesdropping on her conversation with her mother. I just pretended like nothing had happened and we continued living our lives. After that, I became really conscious about my actions and my behavior. I wanted to make sure that I was not giving any impression in some way that she couldn't trust me. I tried my best to give her a safe, secure, and comfortable space around me. I was good to her. As Caroline had quit her job, she really was making an exceptional housewife. She kept herself busy at home. She made nice dinners for both of us. I loved her cooking and baking. I loved how she was always trying new dishes and new sorts of cakes, and she was really good at it. She was also quite invested in home settings and decor. She was always keeping all our furniture up to trend and kept making new settings. There is no doubt in admitting that she was exceptional at it. I know people whose wives stay at home, but they neither cook that well nor keep the house good. Caroline had good taste. She was good with colors and settings. She seemed very happy and at peace like that, so I was happy for her. I was glad that she was not stressing about work-related things and was living her life as she had wanted. However, somewhere in my head, I still wonder why she had lied to me. Should I read this to be any red flag? Now for the first update. Thank you for your comments. Yeah, I kept trying my best to be good to her. A few months later, a small conflict arose among us when we got to talk about starting a family and having children. It had been 3 years into our marriage and everything was just great. I just felt like I was missing the presence of my children. And so I decided to discuss this with Caroline. Her reaction was not what I expected at all. She really flipped out as if I had demanded something without considering what she thought about it. I stayed calm and made her realize that I was not demanding it from her. Of course, I was just trying to discuss it with her as it was something that I wanted and had been thinking about. She got really mad at me and shouted and went into the room, slamming the door behind her. I was completely shocked at the reaction. It was just so abnormal. I was obviously never going to force her for anything that she did not want. It was her body, and it was up to her if she wanted it or not, and I would never force her for something like that. I just found it weird that she was not being reasonable about it at all. How hard was it to talk about it and have a proper conversation instead of barging off and slamming doors behind her? I was mad at her too. After that, I did not know our relationship had become the kind where we could not communicate with each other without her getting mad at me. I decided that this time I would not talk to her or make up for her until she realized her mistake. I was expecting her to come to me after she had cooled down, but that did not happen. I fell asleep in the living room waiting for her to come out of the room and talk it out, but that did not happen either. I woke up in the morning to see that she was in the kitchen making breakfast for us. I went into the kitchen and stood for a few minutes hoping that she would talk, but that did not happen. She pretended as if I was not even present. I wanted to talk to her, but it infuriated me even more, so I also stopped talking to her. I thought if it doesn't matter to her, why should I care either? I went to my office and worked as usual. I was hoping for Caroline to text something, but she did not, and I was disappointed. I went home in the evening, as is my daily routine, and I found out that Caroline was not home. It was weird, as she never went out at that time of the day or without telling me about it. I found it weird, but I went to the kitchen hoping I might see a note there, but nothing. I checked my phone again for texts or voicemails, but nothing. I called her, but she did not pick up the call. I also realized that she had not prepared anything for lunch or dinner, which was also something that rarely happened. I waited for her to get home, and meanwhile, I made dinner for us. By that point, I was not really mad at her, and I thought I would make up and explain to her what I meant yesterday. I made pasta for us, as Caroline loved it. After I made the pasta, I checked my phone again to see if there was any update. She still hadn't returned any of my calls or texts. I began to get worried because it was not normal and I feared that she was in some sort of trouble. I made some phone calls to her friends, but she was not with any of them. I began to get really worried. All sorts of weird scenarios began to circle my head. I was too scared. I kept calling her, but she wasn't answering. As I was about to leave the house to go to the police or something, Caroline turned up at the door. I almost cried out of joy and hugged her and then scolded her for where she had been. She acted very casually as if I was overreacting. We sat down and had dinner. She smiled as she realized that I had pasta for us. She apologized for her behavior, and I also clarified to her that I was just trying to discuss it with her. I was obviously not forcing her to have a baby. I would never do that until both of us were ready to become parents. We made up, and then I told her that I had been worried sick about where she had been when she didn't come home for so long. Caroline said that she had gone to visit her friend Sarah, as Sarah had invited her over. She didn't tell me because she was mad at me. She was unable to pick up my calls because it was silent. After that, we talked a little more, and then I went to sleep. Caroline fell asleep almost immediately, but I could not. The events of the day kept revolving in my head. I could not understand what the uncomfortable feeling was, but I was not feeling all right. Something was just totally off. I felt like Caroline was turning into a stranger. She did some things that were completely out of my understanding. It was not how she usually behaved with me. The way she was so casual about being absent and not informing me felt very wrong. It was not the person I married, who was so considerate and loving and never tried to put anyone under unnecessary stress or tension. Also, she had always been very communicative with me. We never hid things from each other. We were very vocal about how we felt, and we always acknowledged and respected each other. It was the secret behind staying in love with each other for so long through so many different phases of life, and now I felt like that was vanishing. Caroline was backing away from communication and respecting my feelings. They made me wonder if our relationship was falling apart. Now for the second update. Sorry for the late update. I know I almost took a year to update, but trust me, I really got caught up in a lot of mess. And it took me all this while to clear it up. Here's what happened next. 2 days later, I was at the store buying some things. I was going home and had stopped to get Caroline's favorite chocolate. It was something I was trying to rejuvenate our love. I was at the counter when I ran into Sarah. She said hi to me and asked how Caroline was doing. I said she would know if she just met her the previous day. Sarah seemed confused and said that she hadn't met Caroline since last month, and I was more confused. I said that I must have missed her, and then I was driving home. I knew I was probably seeing the end of my marriage. I could not tolerate lies from Caroline. Where was she, and why on earth did she lie to me? I went home and gave her the chocolates I had bought for her. She was overjoyed. We had the usual conversation and laughed. I was faking it all. My mind was stuck with who was Caroline with the previous day. As Caroline went to sleep that night, I snuck out as I could, just not stop myself. I took her phone and opened it. I checked her calls and texts. I was surprised to see that she had called my best friend Simon, 35, very frequently and almost every day. It was very fishy and abnormal. Simon was my childhood friend. He was the son of my dad's best friend. Simon and I had grown up together. We had spent all the stages of life with each other. We went to school and college together, and we took over our father's businesses at the same time. Simon, however, was not as hard-working as I was. He was interested in partying and not doing anything. He never really had an interest in business either and was actually forced by his father to take over. His father did not give him a choice to do something else. Simon was good friends with Caroline, of course, as she had been with me for so long. I liked the fact that they got along well when we started dating because I had seen people with difficulties when their friends and their partners did not get along well. I always wanted my partner to get along with my best friend, and I was very happy when I got that. During the high school and college times, we hung out together and enjoyed a lot. I am glad that I had the two people who were closest to my heart in all steps of my life, my lover and my best friend. The next day, I went to meet Simon. I was just curious. I was obviously not going to ask him about those calls, but I just wanted to see if I caught on to something from meeting him. I went to his office, and as usual, he was out. He was running his business very poorly because of his immense carelessness and unprofessional behavior. I called him and he asked me to wait for a few minutes as he was almost there. He met me in the same cheerful greeting manner that he always did. He asked if I would like to eat or drink anything, and I asked him for coffee. We talked about a lot of things, and when I was about to leave, he asked me about Caroline and how she was doing. He remarked that he hadn't talked to her in ages and must invite us over for dinner. I smiled and said that we would love that as a reunion. As I got out of his office, I knew Caroline was cheating on me with this guy. I didn't even need to have proof because I knew that already. It was just something that I could see in his ugly eyes. It was right there, but of course, I needed some proof to go about it the right way. I went home and spent the rest of the day with Caroline. When Caroline went to take a shower, I took her phone and installed a tracker on her phone. That app allowed me to access her phone and see all her texts and calls and every activity on her phone. I was ready to get some filthy evidence and divorce her. The next morning, the first thing I did was call my lawyer. I discussed the matter with him in detail. I told him that I did not want to share anything with her after the divorce. She did not deserve a single penny. The lawyer said that if the evidence was solid enough, it was possible that she would not make money out of the divorce. I was going to make sure that was going to happen. I kept a check on Caroline's phone, and yes, I got the proof almost immediately. There was an exchange of texts between Caroline and Simon. Their conversation was disgusting. It made me sick to the core. Caroline was saying that she would file for divorce in a few weeks and that whatever she would get out of the divorce, she would share with Simon, and they would get married soon. Apparently, she was actually in love with Simon, and that was more painful for me. I took the screenshots and was relieved that I had gotten the much-needed evidence to solidify my case. I then texted them to my lawyer, and he said that things were looking really great for me. He immediately filed for divorce and filed a case against Caroline. I didn't go home that day. I had decided that I was only going to see her in the court. I was not going to talk to her or even let her say a single word to me. I could not tolerate her filthy existence around me. I took an apartment on rent as I knew that it would take me a while before the case ended, and I could not be around her. She was sent the divorce notice, and I am sure she was really shocked. She sent me billions of texts asking what it was and where I was, but I was not going to answer. She was going to be ruined in so many ways. The court process began, and I had to go to the court regarding it. Everything was in my favor as I had proof for everything. The proceedings carried on for a few months, but they ended in my favor. During those months, she kept trying to reconcile or apologize, but I pretended like she did not exist. I did not even allow myself to feel the pain that I was going through. Caroline got almost nothing out of the divorce because her intentions were crystal clear to everyone. She had been with me for my money and had been cheating on me with my best friend. My best friend was after my money and success too, and he wanted to get it through my wife. I never talked to Simon again. He never came to me either. He must have known that I would punch him in the face if he ever talked to me again. Simon did not marry Caroline as expected. He only wanted to get the money out of her, but that never happened. When Simon's father got to know about his reality through my dad, he despised him. He was already very ashamed of his loser son because he was depreciating his dad's business every day while I was able to scale my dad's to the next level. The trauma of being betrayed by your wife and your best friend is not easy. I had lost two of the closest people to me who had been with me for so long. Life began to look very hard and ugly, and I was depressed. Thankfully, my parents were there for me through all of this. They stood by me in all the times. My mom convinced me to take therapy and deal with things in the right way. I never wanted to take therapy, but I did it, and I was glad that my mom had forced me to take this step. It enabled me to heal and handle my grief in a better way. I didn't have to stay in the heap of hopelessness and depression. I met Simon a few months later, and I was very depressed in those days. I could not stop myself from lashing out at him. I almost punched him, but I was stopped by the people in the office. Later, I found out that Simon's business was going to be lost. He had lost a lot and had gone through a lot of problems only because of his carelessness and incapability. I threw myself into the business once again as it made me forget everything that had gone wrong in my life. I got better as time makes you forget a lot of things. I had moved on from the extreme pain that was thrown at me. I am proud of who I am and where I stand today despite going through so much in life. The fact that I am able to write down my pain so effortlessly indicates that I have moved on.